We are live. We are live. We are
We
live.
are live.
We are live. We are also live today, as always, on YouTube. Also on the On the Bump Instagram. As always, on Instagram, we will go live for the first, 15, 20 minutes, and then we encourage you to switch over to the
Check us
YouTube
out.
page to finish it off. And then when that's done with, over the weekend, you should listen on Spotify. You should just do all
Oh, yeah.
three. Hit all three notes. It will be on Spotify this weekend. That is a promise.
What is this, episode 18 now?
18, yeah, because we called it 16 all week, all episode last week, but it was actually 17. So today is 18.
Wow.
Uh,
We're almost hitting the big 2-0.
I know it feels. Talked about it a couple weeks ago, but for over 4 months now,
Yeah, it's crazy. We've
it
been,
is crazy.
but hopefully we get our viewership up going into the season. We'll have some hot topics. We'll have some friendly wagers going on. It'll get a little
Yeah,
spicier, I think. This is kind of
yeah.
a
I mean,
slow period here.
we'll
Free
definitely do
agency kind
things
of died out, and yeah, we'll pick
when
it up.
when the games start. We'll definitely do things where, like, maybe leading up to the week, we'll do some type of pick 'em for an upcoming series, or we'll do some fun stuff. So,
Some parlays, yeah.
yeah, some great stuff. We always start with news. There's not a ton, and I guess that kind of plays the role with um, free agency kind of being done, obviously, and the season starting. We get away less from news, and there's games on, but there's no notable things happening in the games. I mean, a
Right.
couple things here and there. The one thing that is a big story is Yankees and Aaron Boone. We here at the On the Bump podcast wish Aaron Boone well. We hope he
Of course.
recovers well. But on a note of talking about it outside of the obviously you hope he's fine, I don't think he's coming back anytime soon.
It's going to be interesting to me because I think today he was released from the hospital. Obviously, I know nothing about what the process recovery time is. Obviously, his recovery is not going to be the same recovery as a major league player would have to go through because he's not being an athlete, he's
Yeah.
being a manager. I heard or read something that his his heart rate was in the 30s
It's like,
before the pacemaker was installed, which is serious shit. I don't know how he's
yeah,
functioning or how he was functioning at all when your heart is beating at that rate, that low of a rate. So I don't know. It's crazy. Um, I'm not sure who would be managing the Yankees at this point. I haven't really dug into that because I'm not really super tuned into spring training at this point. I don't know. We obviously we wish Aaron Boone well, of course. So a couple years ago, people were kind of, is he a good manager? Does he deserve a manager spot, or is he more so just a talking head that is good on a Baseball Tonight program on ESPN? I think he's kind of proven himself, especially last year. The Yankees wanted someone who was relatable to the players a little more, which even though Joe Girardi was a player himself, he wasn't was a former player. He wasn't necessarily a player's manager in the same sense that he was, like this guy that you could go talk to, kind of lean on for whatever you're thinking about or whatever you need to go through. I think Aaron Boone has maybe less of the analytical skills. I know people call Joe Girardi kind of Binder Joe because it would be very predictable what he would do during a game with his bullpen decisions. But Aaron Boone is more so dealing with the soft skills. He's really a player's manager. He understands what they're going through on a week to week, day to day basis. And it'll be interesting to see how the Yankee team, especially the young guys, kind of deal with that, deal with
yeah.
not having him there.
Looking into it more, something I didn't know. He had open heart surgery in 2009, which I don't
Wow.
think a lot of people knew. Um, and the second note was the interim is expected to be either hitting coach Marcus Timms
Okay.
or bench coach Mendoza, Carlos Mendoza. My guess, just going off what I know, anticipating it would probably be the bench coach, not the hitting coach, if I had to
Right.
guess, because bench coach you don't necessarily have to. You have to replace him, but not. It's different replacing a hitting coach than it is a bench coach. Is
Right,
my
because the hitting coach, their everyday job is specific to making sure
yeah
he's not. It's like offensive, defensive coordinators
yeah,
in the NFL
and he's
versus
a
if something happens, it could just be an assistant coach. And of course, the NFL staffs are much deeper. So even if you bump up an
yeah.
offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator to head coach on an interim basis, there's someone who can backfill him. That's not necessarily the case on a major league roster
And he's a
for
pretty high
coaching staff.
quality hitting coach too.
Oh yeah, I
Marcus
mean,
Timms is a pretty big time hitting coach. So, what I would guess though is if Boone does miss game time, meaning like actual regular season game, I would feel like the Yankees would be coached, whoever it was, very by the book, very decision based off of stats and analytics, and not letting him make a decision as a manager per se is my guess. Because I mean, who knows? Maybe if they put a Mendoza, maybe Mendoza's a guy who's rising up the ranks and has been ready for an opportunity, you know. But
I
I,
imagine if Boone, what's today? It's March 4th, March 5th today. Season starts in 4 weeks. Um, I think Aaron Boone will, if I had to guess, I think he'll be in the ballpark. He'll come to the ballpark, and maybe that will have some sort of communication level. Obviously, there are rules about that and communicating from sources outside the dugout. We all know that very
yeah.
well. We've heard about that quite a bit the
Oh,
past few years. So
sorry to cut you off.
no, go for it.
So there's
Breaking
a
news.
I wouldn't say. I mean, maybe. I'm watching ESPN. On the bottom line, it says Yankees Boone hopes to return this weekend. He said he would have returned today had there not been for COVID protocols.
I mean,
I mean,
that would be incredible.
at the end of the day, it's a pacemaker. I mean, people get pacemakers all the time. So I guess maybe we're
Yeah,
over.
but they're not major league. It's different. They're not.
Yeah,
You're traveling. You're even though you're not an athlete, there's still for that grind from April to hopefully late October, early November. You're kind of in the trenches for that entire period. It's a stressful period, regardless of whether you're actually doing something athletic or not. It's like someone who has a very high stress job, their heart rate goes
yeah.
up.
I guess it'll be interesting to see when he comes back. Apparently, if he misses any extra time after that for whatever reason. So
Right. Yeah.
something to monitor, regardless. Something to keep our eyes on and monitor. And
We wish
we
him the
obviously
best.
wish him the best. Friend of the podcast.
Big
Um,
friend. Huge friend.
Another, I guess, big story, but not on the baseball landscape. More on the overall landscape of
Nicholas tried
everything.
twice today. He did not get a pack. Fortunately,
It's killing
on
me.
the noon drop, I was able to get a pack. If you don't know about NBA Top Shot, we can
NBA
explain
Top
a little bit.
Shot. Yeah, NBA Top Shot. Basically, a rough explanation is it is to me it's trading cards but with highlights and having the I don't know how else to describe it better than that. I mean, it's you get to own a highlight basically. It's your highlight, and then you could sell that highlight. So it's basically like trading cards just in video form.
Right, yeah, and it's weird because anyone obviously can go on YouTube or
Yeah,
pretty much any other video streaming site and view. I think you can even view old games on League Pass. So
yeah,
you could see these highlights anytime you want. Of course, though, the effort to go through to find these highlights,
yeah.
if you're a James Harden fan and you get some great James Harden moment in a pack, it's cool to look at, I guess. And in the future, what we could see is kind of like even producer Bob was talking about this, would be interesting. Could see like essentially framing these videos to somehow show up in your
Yeah,
house, just like if you have like an Alexa, if you have an Alexa show with a screen, you can put pictures up there kind of like that. So maybe they do something where you have videos like that up in your house. But it got us thinking what moments we would want within MLB Top Shot. And I think Major League Baseball really needs to start kind of doing things like this that get people interested in baseball on a more casual level. Like if we get players, pimping out home runs, making diving catches, showing some leather, a great base running play, even a nasty pitch, all of those things could be part of these NBA or MLB Top Shot moments. So kind of got
yeah.
us thinking about that, I guess.
See, without downplaying the situation, because we obviously are talking about right now, if MLB did something like this, what would we do with MLB's highlights? The realistic approach of it is that MLB would never do something like this, and
Of
here's
course
why.
not.
Because and a separate, maybe separate reason, maybe not separate. When it comes to their baseball cards, trading cards, stuff like that, they're owned by Topps. So Topps owns the rights to everything MLB. So if you notice with stuff like different card companies, they may put up baseball cards, but you'll never see the actual logos, actual jerseys, stuff like that. So my guess is if they ever did anything where they put into place something like this, it would be their own platform, something owned by Topps, something owned in that regard. But that was just me getting serious for a second. But the real thing is, we're talking about MLB highlights. What highlight would be a highlight that I would want? I guess as a baseball fan, and a couple come to mind. The first one that I thought of, and I just used whatever came to my mind first, is the David Freese home run. I believe Game 6 of that
That's
series. That's
that
the
would
one that they
probably be
said.
one of the most valuable cards.
Yeah, that's the "We Will See You Tomorrow Night."
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the
Gold
highlight.
Buck.
That's the first one. Another one comes to mind, but it is Yankees related, so I'm going to assume you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I mean, I don't know. You haven't said it.
Okay, so something related to Derek Jeter, something related to him leaving the baseball field.
Oh, his
Oh,
last at
nope.
bat.
Yes, but nope. Maybe something of him catching the ball and then flying into a different
Oh, the dive,
place.
the big
Yes,
dive,
yes,
July 1st,
yes.
2004. Don't get
So
me
you even knew
started.
the date specifically.
Don't. That's like a thing that sets me off if you start talking about the dive. It's one of the most vivid baseball memories that I have
Well, I think I
watching
mean,
that game. I think we
we
talked
talk.
about it last episode,
Yeah,
honestly.
we definitely did. We talk about these moments. I actually think baseball's moments would be exponentially more valuable than any other sport because maybe football could compare, but because I feel like their singular moments are more impactful than a singular moment in, let's say, basketball. Like, I
Right.
feel like you get more of those 5-second moments in baseball because a full home run could go out in 2.8 seconds. So it's that kind of moment that I feel like you get those more in baseball, whether it's the Joe Carter home run for Toronto, whether it's the David Freese home run, whether it's the Kirk Gibson. I can't believe what I just saw when he's hobbling around the bases. Like these moments you remember, and in basketball, there's I can't come off the top of my head and be like, there's that moment, you know?
The only moment really basketball wise that comes to mind, Linsanity moments as a Knicks fan.
Yep.
Mello in the Garden during, I think it was a Bulls game on like Easter, where he does obviously the three to the dome.
See, I think basketball is more
LeBron's
about
block
I
in the
think basketball is
finals.
more about like the player and their moment, and I think baseball is more about the actual moment itself. Because I think the moment, let's say for David Freese, is more about that moment than it is David Freese. But LeBron's
Yeah,
block, or even um, like any play for Linsanity, is more about Jeremy Lin than it was that specific moment.
There, yeah. I think it's interesting with baseball because there's not this constant action that happens in baseball, which a lot of people obviously hate that about baseball. They think that makes it boring. But like you said, that makes the moments where things happen even more valuable and even more exciting as a fan because at least when I'm at a baseball game, I'm sitting on the edge pretty much
Yep.
every pitch, trying to, especially in a close game. And if it's later in the season, you're on the edge of your seat every pitch, and you could make or miss a moment. I think moments that come to mind for me, just based on my own experience, one recently, well, the most are recent, but one more recently, was it 2019? Obviously, it wasn't 2020 because I didn't go to any baseball games. It was either 2018 or 2019. It was like a random Tuesday night, and or like a Tuesday, Wednesday night, and I got tickets through this guy from work. He gave me tickets that were like, he got them for free. He gave them to me. They were like 3 rows, like 5, 10 rows back down the third baseline. And it was Yankees Mariners, not like this big game in the season. It was in like May. Johnny Lasagna was on the mound for the Yankees. He gave up 5 runs really quickly. Yankees were down 5-0. I could just sniff something in the air that night that the Yankees were still going to win that game. And Giancarlo had kind of his signature Yankee moment to date where he hit a he hit a walk
I would
off. It's
keep going. I'm sorry.
it's partially his signature moment also because of the call that Michael Kay made where he called it his signature moment. And I
Mhm.
just remember the crowd all watching the ball like its trajectory going out of the field and just then everyone collectively raising their hands. It was
Yeah.
one of the funner moments. And then I wasn't there for it, but a moment that I'm sure that would sell for a ton of money was when Aaron Judge hit the crap out of the ball. It hit like the Bank of America sign, went like, had it not hit that sign, it would have gone like literally 550 feet. And I think that would end up being valuable. Obviously, and producer Bob knows I would be mentioning this too. The Didi Gregorius home run,
Yep.
bottom of the first, AL wildcard game 2017.
Twins
Probably
or
the
Athletics.
loudest I've seen. No, against the Twins.
I was right the first time. Okay.
The loudest stadium I've been a part of. I've been at, and then kind of almost Paxton's moment last year in the ALCS where he was like, it's not necessarily a moment of the game in the game, but it got people really fired up. And then even maybe I'll throw another one in there. Gardner's at bat in game 5 of the 2017 ALDS, where he fouled off like 20 pitches and then I don't think it I don't think it was the go ahead run, but it was a very important insurance run at that point in the game where the game was kind of teetering on the edge and he put together a spectacular bat. So, I mean, I could go on and on this, but
Yeah, and I mean to spin it to the Mets. I mean, from my point of view, it's kind of weird because the biggest moments for the Mets in the recent would have been the World Series run, but every big
David Wright's
moment
home
for
run in what was that
David Wright's
game
home run
two?
is yeah, that's the one that would stick out because every other moment where the series was clinched via save, the crowd wasn't as prevalent because it was either in Los Angeles or Chicago. So the announcers were prevalent, the moment was prevalent, but there was no crowd to it. The David Wright home run, there was a crowd to it. The Granderson home run, I believe it was Dodger. No, it was actually in the World Series. It was the Royals game 2, where we kind of got some juice in the series, but obviously didn't work out. But I think Granderson hit a big home run in that one, and then obviously, like you said, David Wright's home run. The next year against the Mets, I mean, I don't want to. I know it's the Mets, but it was in the wild card game. The Mets were 0-0 against the Giants. The pitchers were dueling. Went to the bottom. no, it couldn't have been the bottom because it was at home. So it was top of the ninth, let's just say. And I think it was Connor Gillespie, who was named for the pass, and he hits that home run into the Mets bullpen off of none other than Familia. And that was like a Bumgarner DeGrom or Bumgarner Cinder. It couldn't. It might have been Syndergaard. It was a brawl, and that was the year after the World Series run. But yeah, I guess those are the moments for baseball, for Mets, I should say, that would stick out. I mean, nothing really recent. There wasn't a big moment this past World Series that like sticks out.
Yeah, no, they're well, not having the fans or at
Yeah.
least as many fans and having it be at a neutral field kind of took a lot of the air out of it from that standpoint.
Did you hear the comments? I think it was this week by Walker Bueller. He basically was on some sort of show, and they were talking about the neutral site and how it impacted. And he was saying how like it actually he didn't hate it. Now I don't know if that is a minority take or a majority take, but he said he actually didn't hate the idea of the split of the neutral site. Right.
I mean, I could see players not hating that because obviously there's a lot of pressure when you're playing in front of your home fans and they're starved for a World Series, which not as much as other teams, but the Dodgers fan base pretty starved for a World Series. It had been about 30 years. I mean, you even hear about that in the NBA a little bit, where there's kind of some theories that the Knicks are able to play or are playing well because when teams are not having fans at Madison Square Garden, players kind of get juiced to away players get
Yep.
juiced to play in that environment. So even on the flip side, from a World Series standpoint, that takes away, or generally baseball standpoint, that takes away some of the juice from the away team in a World Series where you're not able to kind of feed off the crowd or feed off the crowd's negative energy and try and silence them. I can even just thinking about the 2003 World Series, kind of one of the first major playoff series that sticks out in my head. I just remember towards the end of game 6 with Josh Beckett on the mound, how dead silent that stadium was because it was just no one was expecting to lose that World Series, especially after the emotional ALCS. And it was just, you could probably hear a pin drop in that stadium. It was
Well,
completely deflated.
well, that's a similar moment, I would think, to not to bring it up, but 2004, not game 6, obviously, but game 7 after they fought all the way back. And when Damon hits that, I believe, grand
Grand
slam,
Slam. For
that
some
had to be
reason,
the
that
same.
doesn't stick out as much in my head as like a
Yeah.
painful moment. Obviously, it is, but
See,
for,
it doesn't, for me, obviously, because I have no dog in the race, so it doesn't be painful to me, but it does have a moment, it sticks out to me of like silence. I feel like there was like this,
oh
like,
yeah,
deafening Johnny Damon even though Yankee fans kind of went into that game like, we're crushed. The players are probably
yeah.
crushed. The fans are crushed.
I think
That moment,
who was on the starting nine. I didn't listen, or was it section 10? I didn't listen to it, but I follow along with
yeah,
what they discuss on Twitter. I think they had Doug Mankiewicz on
yep,
a
they had him
couple of
on
weeks
recently. I
ago.
think that was section 10. Yeah,
It must have been section 10
yeah,
because it's Red Sox themed. And he was saying how in game 7 or pregame game 7, the Red Sox clubhouse was like a frat party, and the Yankees clubhouse at that point was basically a
yeah,
morgue. So
yeah,
you kind of knew where that game was going before it even
yeah.
started. So I mean, that's a moment too where that's kind of the moment where the Red Sox exercised the demons of the curse and were able to overcome that. World Series wise, too, another moment that randomly sticks out. Rajay Davis's home run, even though it didn't win the World Series, that was a huge moment. Just kind of sticks out also because Chapman blew the save in that. But Cubs pulled it out anyway. I mean, we could go on here.
Yeah, we could go on. I guess there's no real bridge to it. But one of the things we wanted to touch on was obviously a big deal when it comes to sports, and that is fantasy sports. So MLB.com released their top 800 players of the year. I obviously am not going to give you 20 of them, let alone 800 of them. But
You
we
can
will
look
talk
it up
a little
yourself.
Yeah.
Also,
If you want to look it up, it's MLB. Yes.
we will be having our own fantasy
Uh-huh.
baseball league. Stay tuned for details on that. We should be drafting, obviously, within the next few weeks or so. And yeah, probably have some money on the line here and
Yep.
make it a little interesting.
And other details about it are that we will be doing some. I haven't figured out all the details yet, but some sort of year-to-year keeper for that league.
Would like
I think
that.
it's something like 3 hitters, 3 pitchers carried into each year, something along those lines. We'll figure out all that stuff, but it will be some sort of keeper dynasty league. I don't know the details, but it won't just be a redraft league. There'll be something to it.
I
If you're
follow
interested,
some of those dynasty heads on Twitter.
they're
They
fun.
are crazy. They
Yeah.
know stats about guys who are in like double A
Yeah.
right now who are so
Yep.
off the map because they're trying to figure out, but those are for like 10-year dynasty leagues where
Yeah.
they're trying to figure out who to pick up now that might not be valuable for 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, we won't be doing a full dynasty in that regard.
No.
We're minor league
We
players,
don't
but
have
we
the
will be.
time. We have day jobs.
We have day jobs. We all have day jobs, but we will be doing some sort of
Well, some
keeper.
people, they work in baseball, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just our side gig.
Yeah. So,
Unpaid side
like I
gig.
said, if you guys are interested, reach out to me on Twitter, Todd on Twitter, the On the Bump pod, the On the Bump page on Twitter, wherever you can find us. Comment below, whatever you want to do. We will be opening signups soon, so you don't want to miss out. But going quickly on the list before we get into the AL West, Todd, who would you think would be the number 1 player ranked?
I mean, Mike Trout.
Incorrect. I'll just say it now because you.
I mean, it should be Mike Trout.
Mike Trout is 4th.
That's ridiculous.
They have Ronald Acuna at 1.
No.
It's Ronald Acuna 1, Fernando Tatis 2,
No.
Mookie Betts 3, Mike Trout 4.
Okay, I'm drafting Mike Trout first if I have the first pick. It's not even a question.
I think that's just whoever made this list is bored of putting him at number 1.
There's no way I'm drafting Acuna first.
I mean,
when
I'll preface it by saying Mike Trout is the first player on the board to me. But if I was gonna put anybody potentially, I wouldn't think Tatis or Betts, but I would think Acuna. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't do it, but he has 40-40 ability. He stole 28 bases last year. Excuse me, not last year. But he could be on a pace for a 40-40 type season. He's got crazy speed. He's crazy athletic. He hits the ball very well. He's a young budding star. So I can understand the argument of Acuna. Betts and Tatis aren't there for me. And I would even consider, if you want to say the potential of a breakout year is Juan Soto. I think he's in that discussion. Uber talented as well.
What was the trade in our league? There was potentially people, if this was a trade this year, there's no way it would ever even be discussed. But there was a trade on the table between Nick and Bob, and I forget who had who at this point. I think Nick had Tatis.
No.
Bob.
No, I had Juan Soto.
Wait, you guys actually did the trade? I don't think
so. Oh, wait, no.
But
You're right. I had Tatis. I offered Bob Tatis plus another player. I don't remember the second player, but it was 2 players. It was Tatis and another guy. I want to say it was Luke Voigt, but I could be very wrong. For Juan Soto. Because Juan Soto
at the time, right.
Yeah. It was like on opening.
Tatis wasn't this breakout guy that he is now. No. But there's huge upside there. And obviously Luke Voigt wasn't the home run leader or the leading home run hitter in baseball. Kind of only really had a season or so of a track record here, and no one knew if he was going to fall off the map or not. So it was a pretty fair trade at surface level at the beginning of the season. But
The problem
towards the
is
end of the season and this year, you would never make that trade.
and if you're in the league, you'll realize producer Bob knows baseball from about 2010 to
That's his peak.
2015. Yeah.
He will
So
always be, his peak
yeah.
was 2010 to 2015. He drafted Elvis Andrews pretty early on because that was a popular name in like
But
2013.
but what really makes no sense to me is like, so we didn't do this draft like in person, right? So meaning he didn't just like have a board in front of him and he had to say it out loud, right? There is a list in front of you when you do an online draft,
Oh, yeah.
and it tells you best available. And Elvis Andrus was not there, so for him to pick Elvis Andrus means he had to
He
search his
searched
name.
for Elvis Andrews and was
Like
like, that's a guy I want on my team.
um,
That's who
so
I need.
my guess is when there's money on the line, I feel like he's going to be a different kind of person looking up research wise. That's my guess. I don't think he'll just throw
Probably,
a fucking
yes.
um.
Yeah, he was just having fun.
Yeah, he's
But
not going to pick I can't even think of a good retro name. Pokey Reese.
wow, Pokey Reese.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good names you go back in time, but
Mark
we
Kurdzalanek,
last thing's Millage,
David Eckstein.
Willie Mopena.
Last thing's Millage. Last thing's Millage. Wow. Milton
That,
Bradley.
I mean, last thing's Millage was a bust and a half.
Willie Mopena could have hit the shit out of the ball.
Ching Ming Wang.
He's one of my heroes, Chen Ming Wang.
His
Ace of
hero.
the 2006, 2007 era. He had a decent run.
I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
some notables here for fantasy. Who do you think is the starting pitcher one? Starting pitcher one.
I want to say DeGrom, but it probably won't be because they figure he could run into a situation where he doesn't get run support.
So it is very close.
I'm gonna say Garrett Cole. I don't think it is, but
It is Garrett Cole. They have him at 6th. They have Jacob DeGrom literally right behind him at 8th.
So I think I took Cole last year with the 4th pick. I think I had the 4th pick. I don't know why I remember that. But yeah, a little high.
Yeah, so that's MLB.com Fantasy. Shout out them if you want to go look at their list.
Next few weeks, maybe we'll talk more about kind of our thinking fantasy-wise. Yeah. Obviously, we don't want to give away too many details strategically if some of our listeners join in on our league. So
yeah,
we'll
my
keep
hope
it
would
kind
be
of surface level.
Hopefully, schedule the draft while we're still doing the divisional previews, and then maybe the last week, because the way it lines up, we'll have an extra week. So we'll do a week maybe of some like a whole fantasy special after we've done our draft or something.
We'll do
like
a live show.
Yeah, my hope. I mean, regardless, my hope would be if we get enough fans and stuff in this league that we do some sort of live show for the draft. But that'll all be figured out when the time comes. Moving on, it is time for our preview show. We've now done the National League. Now, just to recap, because we do jump into a whole different league. Quick recap. At least we both picked the Braves to win it all. Mets to fall just short. NL Central, we both picked the Cardinals to win that division. And the NL West, we were Dodgers and then Padres. So pretty much chalk so far. We picked a bunch of other things, which we will. I'm not going to give you everything. You can go back and listen, go back and watch, because that's what podcasts are for. Go watch and build yourself in. We are in the AL West, so we have a bunch of teams here that I think this is a weird division.
Very weird.
It's kind of all over the place. you have two teams realistically that can compete for the top, and that's Astros and A's, with the Angels kind of lurking as always. Well, I think the levels are Astros, A's, Angels, Rangers, and Mariners in the bottom.
I think A's and Angels are kind of on the same level this year. I think
You just
A's
hate the
dropped
Astros.
down.
You hate the Astros. I mean,
No,
listen,
I
rightfully
think
so.
I think the Astros are gonna. We'll get into it, obviously, but
Yeah.
I think the Astros will still win this division, but this division overall is going to be down.
So I'm gonna start now. I don't necessarily want to spoil my pick, but I'm just gonna start with the Mariners for an interesting reason here. Not that so. Okay, if you had to guess on the Mariners, what do you think their line would be?
72.5.
Okay, so you're actually right on. It's 73.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I feel like early looking at that's high to me because the Rangers are 67.5. So
Rangers are better than the Mariners, in my opinion.
but
Mariners
that's what
have good young talent. They're a couple years away.
but that's what makes me go, what does Vegas know for them to give them 6 games on the Rangers?
The upside on Mariners is higher, but it's not there
Because,
yet. Like, if
yeah, I
they
mean,
exceeded all expectations, this team could win 77, 78 games and be hanging around kind of until, late August, early September. But it's just not. I mean, they have a lot of young arms. They brought back James Paxton, Ken Giles back in the mix. There, Sheffield. Well, it basically looks like, not basically, the Mariners essentially won the James Paxton trade because they got James Paxton back. And
yeah, regardless
they
the way
have
you look at it,
Justice Sheffield, who's a quality arm at this point, still young. Obviously, their farm team's pretty stacked, or their young talent in general is pretty stacked. Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez, they're built for the future. Kelenic, obviously, that was a huge error on Brody Van Wagenen's point, letting Kelenic go. Although
see,
you could flip it as, was there really a spot for him as the Mets are
no,
constructed
well,
right now?
I don't. First, I want to say,
He
very rude of you
he
to
would
even
get a
bring that
spot
up.
over J.D. Davis.
Very rude of you to bring that up.
I didn't
But
mean it as a.
second of all, I look at it. I've spun it in my head as we traded Jared Kelenic for Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson. That's how I've spun it in my head, and that's what I'm going to live with. So you can't bring me down. You can't make me sad. I've spun it that way.
That's quite a reach.
And then Robinson Cano gets suspended, so we traded Robinson Cano for Marcus Stroman's contract back. So it was actually
that's fair. That's fair.
If you really want to say that was a hell of a trade by the Mets, they did a great job in that deal, getting Steve Cohen for a prospect that we don't know what he could be. Awesome trade.
He's not a sure thing, obviously, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have Kyle Seager. Shed Long on the Yankees. I forget what
Shedlong's there.
Was he a Yankees prospect? I forget.
Well, they have the kid they got from the Phillies too for JP. It is JP Crawford. They got him for Gene Segura. Got a good glove over there.
There are a lot of guys on the Mariners roster who are guys that you pick up for like a week in fantasy, and they have a hot week, and then you drop them.
They have
guys
Mitch
like Ty France did some things for a couple weeks. Dylan Moore. I mean, Evan White can hit the crap out of the ball, but not consistently.
They had the catcher that went to the Padres. He has a brother. Why am I?
Austin Nola.
There you go. They traded him, but All right, so back to what I was saying. I do think Mariners finish fifth, and I'll take the under. Um, but I'm a little nervous saying the under. I feel like something about that line is made to trick you. So could they get to 74, 75 wins? That's what scares me. I don't see it. I think a lot would have to go right rather than go wrong. So I'm gonna go ahead and say they win 68 games. I think that equals 32, 95,
68 and 94.
94. So
Math.
68, 94. Math, not my strong suit. That's Todd's strong suit. Um, yeah, so I'll say that 68, 94. I think they finished last.
Yeah, I would say somewhere around the same. They have a lot of guys. It'll also depend who they bring up and when they bring them up. Obviously, it's not going to change their long-term trajectory here. It's not like this team's going to suddenly push for a playoff position, even at their best. Um, I'll say I kind of want to go lower than you. I might go, but at the same time, they have young talent that could win them some games at some point. I will say 71 and 91. I'll go higher.
71 and 91. You're also going under. Is that a fifth or fourth place finish?
We're going to go fifth. I think this division is going to be kind of not too spread out. So, yeah.
So next team we'll go into is the Texas Rangers. Over under comes in at 67 and a half.
That seems very harsh unless they know of a trade that like
I
we don't
mean
know of.
that team's. I don't. I. You're right in the harsh that I don't think they're worse than the Mariners, but um, that lineup's not great.
They have a reliever named, by the way, Joe Gatto. Impractical Jokers, Joe Gatto.
So he's probably gonna be a star. But I mean, their pitching staff, their highlight of it last year was Corey Kluber and Lance Lynn, who are both now gone. I believe also Mike Minor, who is also now gone. So their only remaining top starter is Kyle Gibson, I
They
think.
signed Arihara too.
Hmm.
Dane Dunning had some decent stretches, I believe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I couldn't pick any of these guys out of the lineup, except
Yeah.
obviously the name Joe Gatto sticks out to me. So Larry. So
All right.
had to do that.
Yeah, I don't.
That's another Joe Gatto classic.
Outside of. You good?
Might not be.
Okay. Well, if you have any more, feel free. This lineup's not great. I mean, you have Joey Gallo.
Their outfield, Joey Gallo, Chris Davis, not necessarily outfield, but those are all guys that can hit the crap out of the ball. And then
You say David Dahl.
massive friend of the podcast, David fucking Dahl. We like David Dahl here. Great for him to get a chance somewhere to try and establish himself a little more. People give him a hard time. If you look into the numbers on David Dahl, he's a guy who I like want to pull up right now. I want to stand on the soapbox for David Dahl.
I mean, looking at this lineup more,
I think his OPS plus, he gets
his OPS,
bad rap.
His OPS was 470.
His 162 game average, 23 homers, 87 RBIs. OPS plus 103, slightly above average. OPS 828, which is all right. Slugging percentage around 500. He just had a god awful year last year. Terrible year. Had the injury bug. His OPS plus last year was 19. 19. Average is 100. Previous 2 years, he was at 110 and 113. Mind you, he's still only 26. And in 2019, he was an all-star. Do not give up on David Dahl yet.
I've given up. I've also given up on the Rangers. Looking at this lineup, looking at the rotation, I actually think they're going to compete heavily with the Mariners for the worst team in this division.
I
You
think
look at
they'll
what
eke
they've
it out.
lost.
They have a little more veteran experience.
You look at what they've lost, though. I mean, this offseason, Kluber, Lance Lynn, Nicasio, Rafael Montero, who's not a great name, but he was actually okay for them out of the bullpen. Jeff Mathis, Corey Kluber, Derek Dietrich, and Shin-Soo Choo. All
Derek
average
Dietrich?
guys.
What?
Derek Dietrich was on the Rangers. Right
DD?
here. Yeah, he has to sign at the end of the year to like some sort of small deal.
Yeah.
The one guy, if I'm gonna give a positive without sounding overly negative, I do like the kid. I could be pronouncing it weird. Isaiah Keener Falifa, who's kind of a
Yeah,
utility
he's
guy,
good.
plays all over. He's a fun guy to watch out for if you're, you know, looking for a bright spot. But
And
other
they
than
got
that,
Nate Lau from the Rays.
Tampa. Yep. I'm gonna
Still only
say
25.
I'm gonna say over, but very slightly over the 67.5 because I think they're
Oh,
better than
right.
the
It's
Mariners.
67 and a half. Yeah.
So I'm gonna say over, and I'll say 70 wins. So I'll say 70 wins, just barely over 70 and 96. That's not right. 70 and 96?
70 and
No,
92.
92. Yeah, my math, Todd, math. 70, 92, fourth place, and a slight over.
What did I put the Mariners at? 71.
Yeah.
I'm going to put these guys, put them slightly higher. I will give them 73 wins. I think
73.
those bats in the middle of that lineup will surprise some people at certain times. A little more MLB ready, middle of the lineup. They don't have much else.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Moving on. Number 3 in the division. This is for me. I don't know where Todd's going to be. I'm going to say the Angels.
Yeah.
I just don't think they've, as much as like I want them to do good for Mike Trout. They did what they did with Rendon. I think that was a great start. They just have not kept up with what they need to do to keep growing this roster around Mike Trout. There's too much missing. I
I
don't
don't
think they're
know
there.
how, if you're Mike Trout, you don't force your way out somehow. You're
He's too nice.
arguably the greatest talent to ever play the game of baseball, and you're on a team that consistently their ceiling is 86 wins probably, and their floor is 78 wins, and you're just
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
not.
hanging around that area for
What do you
your
think their
entire
over under
career.
is? What do
What
you
do
think
I
their
think
over under?
their over under is? I'm going to say 81 and a half. That's their over under.
83.5.
Okay.
83.5. I mean, you look at their big moves this offseason, their biggest signings were Jose Iglesias. Well, these are trades, I should say. Jose Iglesias, Rizel Iglesias, and Alex Claudio, which aren't like terrible moves, but those are good moves if you have a core built in place. Besides, not just a core, you have a roster built in place. Like if you're like, let's say if you're the Dodgers, you go get both Iglesias and Claudio. It's like okay, those are good supplemental moves. Not the Angels.
They have a
They need
lot of weird names in their pitching rotation. There are guys in the pitching rotation that could be good. Don't get me wrong. Dylan Bundy last year
Who's good
was
last year?
one of the studs of my pitching rotation on my fantasy team. Absolute stud last year. Had a great season. Very unexpected. He was kind of tossed to the wayside by the Orioles of all teams,
Yeah.
and Angels picked him up. And
I
boy, would have
think
the Orioles liked a guy like Dylan Bundy in their rotation. So
yeah.
that's where he ended up there. Otherwise, you look at it, Quintana has had some flashes. Alex Cobb sometimes. Griffin Canning had a couple decent runs. And then you look at their infield, and it's David Fletcher doesn't really do much for me. Rendon obviously is a top five 5. Would you say he's a top 5 third baseman? Maybe
Oh, okay.
top 5
Yeah,
to 10 third baseman
yeah.
in
I
baseball.
thought you were gonna say player, and I was gonna just
No,
choke on
no,
it.
no.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Pujols obviously way past, and then it's just Dexter Fowler's way past. They got a lot of guys here that are just over the hill.
A couple guys to notable. Obviously,
Joe
Shohei
Adele,
Ohtani.
Otani.
Shohei Ohtani. The talk is that he's going to pitch as well as hit. And yesterday or today,
I don't like that.
He hit 100 miles an hour on the gun today.
I don't like it.
That's something at least to look at. The other guy that I really like, another bright spot to pay attention to, is a prospect of theirs named Marsh, Brandon Marsh, who's an outfielder. He's got a good stick. He's got some good tools. I actually like Brandon Marsh, so he's a guy to look at.
Mike Trout can't play the game though with waiting it out for prospects. He's going to be 30 in August.
I mean, he's never going to be the guy that asks out. He's just not.
I mean, there are so many other markets he could go to where, not that LA is not a big market, but where he could be, I don't know, I think of the names or the teams that he could go to. Either of the Chicago teams, Atlanta. Maybe not Atlanta anymore.
Mets.
The Mets.
The Mets.
Fit in seamlessly with the Mets.
You know, we're going to start a campaign.
I mean,
Mike
every
Trout.
team. Yeah, sure. He's from.
Yeah, sure.
Seamlessly.
No, 100. No. He would fit, but it was just the way you said. Yes, yeah, sure.
Any team, every single team in baseball, if you ask them right now, would they trade their center fielder and whatever else?
I
what
think
teams are saying no?
No, not to say no to the actual trade, but there
Maybe
are teams
Atlanta?
that aren't going to take. No, but there's teams that aren't going to take $35 million
contract.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was my point.
Like if you offered it to the Marlins, they would say no because we'd go bankrupt. Or the Pirates.
My question is, and maybe this brings up a good point. If the Angels offered Mike Trout, who's 31, I think you said,
he's going to be 30.
Going to be 30. Sorry, to the Braves for Ronald Acuna, what do the Braves say? I think they say no.
I think you have to you say yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
I'm not sitting here saying Acuna's better today, but do you want
Mike Trout is one of the best baseball players of all time. He statistically is top 5 baseball player of all time. Already,
but
and he's 30.
Do you want 16 years of Acuna or 8 of Trout?
8 of Trout, 100%.
I don't know.
It's not even a question.
I think Braves would say no.
You could tell me the Yankees are trading Luke Voit, DJ LeMahieu, and Aaron Judge for Mike Trout, and I'd say okay.
But that's a different situation than a 23-year-old Ronald Acuna.
Okay, so throw in Gleyber Torres and whoever else you want to throw in.
Listen, I don't.
And Jason Rodriguez.
Dominguez.
Why did I say
that's how much you care about your prospect that everyone thinks is the phenom.
I don't pay attention to prospects. We did shout out Jason on
Rodriguez.
Instagram and Dominguez, and he viewed the Instagram story, so
he knows about us. So,
but okay, we went on quite a tangent here.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
semi-related.
83.5. I'll say under. I think they win 80 on the dot. Finish third. That makes them 80 and 82. Yeah, that's where I have.
I'll go just over. I'll say 84. That's just kind of their range.
84-78.
Yep. Good math.
Thank you. Second team, feel pretty confident we'll differ here.
No,
My
I don't think so.
my second team is the Oakland Athletics.
I think it has to be. I think every team in this division got worse this year.
Yes and no.
So it's all just going to go down.
I think the Astros, yes, roster wise got worse, but I do think they have replacements there that are fine. Like, yes, you lose Springer, but now you have a bigger role for Tucker. Kyle Tucker is a fantastic outfielder. So you have him and Brantley. You have Jordan Alvarez when he comes back. You have a kid named Miles Straw who's a center fielder with some speed and some fun. Those are the kind of guys I think can fill in there. You still have the bats. You have Correa. You have Altuve. You have Bregman. I think, yes, logically and on paper, they did get worse, but I do think they'll have the ability to replace those losses more than the Athletics did anything in the offseason. So Athletics are my second team in the division. Their over-under is 86.5. I think that's a fair spot for them. I really don't know where I'd go because there's not much with the Athletics. They didn't gain a lot. They didn't lose a lot. They do trade for Elvis Andrus. That doesn't mean much. They do lose Marcus Semien, so that kind of they replaced him in some capacity. I just don't think the A's did remotely enough to take another step. I think they still are where they are. So I'll jump right through and I'm going to say slightly under. I think they win 86 games. I just feel like that number feels right to me. So it's 86 and 76. I have them slightly under. And I'm taking the slightly under, not because I think they're going to win 86 games exactly. My brain would tell me more that they're going to go under that number dramatically more, like an 84, 83, 82, more than going above that number. So I'll take the under 86 and finish second.
They have a lot of interesting arms on their team. Chris Bassett had some runs last year, was big on my fantasy team. Sean Manaea has had moments here and there. They signed kind of a veteran pen with Romo and Rosenthal and names like that. Caprielian was in the Yankees system, drafted high up in the first round for the Yankees. And he's still kind of treated as a prospect, even though he's 27 years old. So, I don't know there, but he throws gas. So, and you have Mike Fiers and his interesting all-around life. His we could spend half an episode on that. And whatever the hell he does with his life, I don't know how the hell he's still in baseball, because if everything that has come out about him in the past is true, he is a major, and I could say major 8,000 times, creeper, pedo, weirdo.
He should be
psycho.
Canceled.
Yes. Yeah. If anyone should be canceled, it should be Mike Fiers.
Mike Dr. Seuss Fiers.
Okay, relax. But yes.
No, I get it.
We're not yet. Okay.
I get it. Yeah.
But they have producer Bob's boy, Elvis Andrus. Matt Chapman's obviously had runs. And they have guys like Matt Olson and Mitch Moreland. Pinder can hit the ball. Kana has had runs. Laser Ramon in the outfield. Piscotty.
Stephen Piscotty, yeah.
It's a weird team. I think we decided that this is my team when we do an MLB The Show season. I think we decided that.
I think so too.
Because we're going to be doing the AL West because these teams are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Or not pretty bad, but there's room for us to play around with their lineups and improve them versus just taking a team that is kind of playoff ready or a team that is in a situation where it's just waiting out prospects. So
Fun note. Sorry, Quick, until you give your prediction
go for it.
afterwards. The third base coach is Mark. Mark. I'm not pronouncing the name right, and I should. Former athlete, Mark Kotze. Sorry, Kotze. Jesus Christ, Mark Kotze.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was Kotze. I don't know what else I was going to pronounce it, but I couldn't get it out. Mark Kotze. Fun little note. I don't know. Former MLB player. That was long-winded for
Maybe
nothing.
I would like to do. I think it could be a really fun niche for us, looking into all the third base coaches in baseball and what their antics are.
Wow, that's our
I
thing.
think
The on the bump
I
third
think
base coach.
we need like a segment on that on a regular basis where we talk about what happened with third base coaches. We like while we're watching some games around, we note some things, do some research into like what these guys are about. Because you think of the third base coaches and kind of their character, like the personalities that are third base coaches. There are quite a few around.
Yeah.
Phil Nevin was a masher who's the Yankees third base coach.
He was the
He's
fat.
the
That's not nice. I don't like that word. No, but
yo
I mean,
back it
we
up.
don't need a fat shame here. But he was the bigger guy, right?
Yeah,
He was like the big power guy.
big guy.
Big guy. Big
But
guy. We'll just leave it at
I
that.
mean, this team. What'd you say the over under was?
80.
I mean, I'm gonna put them. I'm
Six.
putting them higher. 86
and a half. Yeah.
and a half. I'll say 87. I'll go right under or over.
So I went a half point under. You went a half point over. 87 and 60.
75.
Oh, so my number was off. It should be 86 and 76. Okay. 87 and 75. You're over. Number 2. That obviously bleeds right into the Astros. I think, as I said, I mean, as you can guess by the prefacing of what I said before, I think they're a similar team to last year. I don't think they lose much of a step. I truly don't. I think they have
Astros. I mean, Verlander's pretty much out for the year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but they have some young guys that can replace that. Josh James is a
Framber,
guy
Valdez.
Framber Valdez.
Obviously,
Well,
Greinke's still
did
there.
he just get banged up, Valdez?
McCullers is coming back.
Right, yeah. McCullers, Jose Urquidy, Javier, Christian Javier, Zach Greinke. They'll figure it out. I don't think they're as good as they've been in the past, but I think they'll figure it out. I think.
I mean, they still have Altuve, Correa, and Alex Bregman.
Yeah,
and
Kyle Tucker
can hit.
Yeah, and Kyle Tucker and Michael Brantley.
Michael Brantley can hit. It's just a question. I don't know. This team, especially, there will be fans at certain stadiums this year.
Yeah.
And it will be the first time since the allegations came out that they will have to face some fans. And I know that even if it's 10% at Yankee Stadium and there are 5,000 fans there, they are going to hear it.
Well,
from the Yankees fans.
Yes, I think Yankees fans, our fan base are still going to hear it from. I just think a lot of fan bases are going to
and Dodgers fans. I don't know what the schedule is.
I don't think Dodgers fans are going to care anymore.
Oh, I think they will. 100%.
I think
as
soon as they won that title, I don't care anymore.
You wouldn't care if your team was essentially robbed of a title?
I just think the average fan
back-to-back titles, they will care.
Well, it wouldn't have been back-to-back.
Well, yeah, they would have won 2019, 2020. Or no, they didn't. That was 2017. What am I talking about?
Yeah, because 2020 was the Nationals. No, just kidding. 2019 was the Nationals.
2019.
Yeah. Okay, we're back. Over-under is 87.5. I'll say I just like I said, I don't think this division is overly great win total wise, but I'll say 92 wins. I think it's a fair
I was
number.
gonna say 91.
Yeah, so I'll take the over regardless. First place, 92 and 70. You're saying 91 and 71.
I think those top three
Okay.
teams will be tight for a little bit.
Yeah, for the most of the
There might
season,
be
then
some
it'll stretch out.
shuffling. Yeah.
I could see a team like the Angels coming out with a little bit of some pizzazz and winning 25 of their first 40, going 25-15, having a nice
Mm.
moment, and then dropping off.
The interesting thing, though, I think in this division especially, will be the trade deadline. What some of these teams do,
Yeah.
especially with like you think of the A's, and if they know they're not going to win,
Matt Chapman.
they're going to probably clean house. And not
Matt
clean
Chapman,
house,
Joey
but
Gallo. Yeah.
they're going to clear some things from the books, do a little money ball.
Something that would feel really logical to me, and just off the top of my head, a player that the Astros could trade for at the deadline if things go the way they expected to go. Herman Marquez from the Colorado Rockies, I feel like would be a nice little fit in that rotation. A guy that doesn't necessarily need to go 9 innings out there. He's not a workhorse, but kind of fits what they do. So I don't know. He would just fit. So yeah,
Maybe
as we
the
do
Yankees could trade Domingo Herman.
to the Astros,
Yeah, get him. So then we
get him.
can boo him.
All right, Todd. Who is your MVP of the NL West?
I forgot we were even doing that part. This, like I want to just say Mike Trout, but
That's where
I'm gonna
my
say
brain
Mike
goes. I'm
Trout.
trying to be.
I'm just gonna
Okay.
say Mike Trout. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, I think that's the chalk one. I'm gonna say. I think at some point the breakout in a full season is gonna happen. So I'm gonna say Correa. I think at some point he's going not has to, he doesn't have to do anything. But at some point he's going, in my opinion, to have that breakout year where he goes 42 homers, 120 RBIs, and bats 320. Like there's gonna be a year where he does that. I think he's too talented not to. So I'll bank on it being this year. I'll say
Doesn't
Carlos
have to
Correa.
buzz.
I mean, I still think Correa is talented. You see what he did in the playoffs last year? Okay, just saying. I mean,
That's a
obviously,
breaking ball.
you seem to be over it. Like logically, Mike Trout is obviously the answer. That's logic, but for the sake of being different. And now Cy Young.
There aren't a ton of great pictures in this division. This is probably the weakest. Not probably. This is the weakest pitching division.
Yeah,
I don't even know
because
where to
even the
go
Astros,
here.
their rotation is very balanced.
I want to say I'm gonna go wild card here. Lance McCullers.
Okay. I don't hate it. Um, I will say I'll stick with the team. I'll stick with the Astros. I'll say Zach Greinke. I think if they are going to
Fair.
be what we think, if they're going to win 91 games like we think on a minimum, um, I think it's going to need to be a McCullers or a Zach Greinke that steps up and takes that ball and dominates every time out. And I think we've seen Greinke has the stuff, and he's a guy that's mastered the idea of throwing it slower later in his career. So that kind of tends to work for the older pitchers when they can start moving the ball a little better. So yeah, I'll say Zach Greinke. I think he'll be needed. One of them will be needed to be the ace. So I'll bank on Greinke. You could bank on McCullers. And that is the AL West preview. We have 2 more divisions left. So next week will be the Central.
And we'll finish it off with the AL East.
AL East will finish it, and then either on the AL East episode or the episode after, depending, we'll do like a full breakdown where we'll predict our World Series champs and actual awards for the season and stuff like that. So home run leaders, we'll probably just do a full prediction episode for that. But because I think the way that weeks add up, I think we have enough time. Because what's today? So we got this is the 5th, and then the 12th would be one. Yankees would be the night, or AL East would be the 19th. Yeah, 26th. Yeah, so we would have time to do one episode in between before the opening day. So yeah, that's
History.
episode. Oh, history! Jesus Christ, history.
I
Hold
had
on.
some interesting. I was looking. It is a bizarre. There's some bizarre notes here. I'll start out with the less bizarre. 1922, on this day, Yankees and Babe Ruth agree on a 3-year contract. I guess obviously extension that was
Was it
worth
worth like
$1,000 for each week, each of the weeks, which is more than 3 times what the next highest paid major league player got
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gotta be pretty high
at
then.
that time.
Yeah, it's gotta be pretty
1,000 a
high.
week, you were a king. I mean, people
Yeah.
now make 1,000 a week and live normal lives.
Yeah,
So
I
you
mean,
think of 1,000 a week then.
Yeah. it was a he was living large.
what is it here? 58.
I mean, back then, maybe
okay.
this is me. Maybe this is me being silly. Maybe this is silly time on the
$1,000
podcast.
was a
but-
lot of money a week
Yeah, but
in
then
1922.
what did you pay for back then?
What do you mean? You still had to live in a house and eat food?
No,
There was
100%.
transportation?
That stuff. That stuff,
Like-
yes. But wait, what transportation were they paying for?
With transportation, there were some cars back then. And I'm
But-
sure Babe Ruth, I don't know.
What was it to
there
get
was
on?
a s-
What was it to get on the train? Like a
You
nickel?
think Babe Ruth was getting on the train? You think
No,
he was
but
just riding. Like, yeah, Babe Ruth was on the 4 train going to Yankee Stadium.
we're talking the average person.
Probably was, but
What are you paying? Like a nickel for an apple at the local place?
that was
You walk around and you fucking throw the guy a nickel and he throws you an apple and you get on with your way.
that was not a small.
You weren't paying
That
for
was like a nickel was like $1 back then. I don't know.
you weren't paying for like a phone bill. You weren't paying for like cable.
You paid for food and you had a radio and
If I just had to pay for food and my nickel for the train, I'd be so rich. It'd be unreal. I had to pay for gas.
there were things that you needed to pay for.
I had to pay for daycare. Just leave the kid in the house; he'd be fine.
How? The kid still
Because
needs
you
to
have
eat.
you have some relative, some grandma or grandpa who was just always at the house for no reason. They were always just like,
They're pawning the kid off. Pawning the kid
Yeah,
off
just
on
leave 'em.
grandma.
just
Sad.
leave them.
Sad.
You didn't have to. There was no like the food you bought was just like food you got at the store, so you would cook it. Like there was no real. I'm assuming there was no takeout. It wasn't like,
I
let's get
assume there were
pizza tonight.
probably some restaurants back then that
I
you could
disagree.
get. Yes, of course there were restaurants. Yes.
I feel like I'm envisioning like 19, whatever this is, 19, whatever.
What you think
Like it's like
happened?
1640.
It wasn't
Yeah.
that. It wasn't that long ago in the scheme of things. It was a long time ago, obviously. 1922 is 91 or 99 years ago. So, but in the
I just-
scheme of everything, it's not that long ago.
I
at
just
all.
imagine if you had made $1,000 a week, then saving money was super easy.
I don't think so. And obviously, well, if Babe Ruth played now, he would be making $500,000 a week.
He'd probably
So-
be making like 30 million a year.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're not going to get into that. If Babe Ruth played now, he would hit 212. He wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I still think Babe Ruth. You know what? No, this is not the this is
we
not
can't.
the
We
time
can't.
to
We can't. Maybe
I
we do
can't.
that another show.
I
We
can't
gave,
get
we
into.
gave the people a little taste there. We'll maybe have a Babe Ruth segment. Maybe we do that next week.
Yeah,
Just building off this. 1958, Duke Snyder, Johnny Padres, Don Zimmer, trying to get back before curfew at spring training in Vero Beach, get into a crash, and it's the third car crash involving Dodgers players within the last 2 months during that time. So, like, what was going on with Dodgers players in 1958, Vero Beach,
Probably drunk.
Florida, spring training? Yeah, probably drunk. And I can't imagine being around like peak
Yeah.
prime Don Zimmer, who Don Zimmer to me in my head is perpetually being thrown to the ground by Pedro Martinez
This is
on a loop.
and
That's what instantly plays in my head on a loop.
I was
That
if
was
you
the
didn't hear
beginning
me
of Sports Center for years.
when you said the name Don Zimmer, I giggled right away. And I was just gonna say that for a
Wasn't
long
that on
time
the
in my life,
beginning of Sports Center for
it was.
years?
It was. For
Yeah.
a long part of my life, every time I saw that highlight, I laughed. And then I was going to say there became a point where I was like, oh man, he's an old man. And I stopped
That's
laughing.
an
But then
NBA moment.
as soon as you just brought that up, I immediately laughed, which I know means I have not changed at all. And that belongs on a Top Shot. I think that's worth
that would
like
be one of the
$1
top
million.
selling. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No question.
Because it's not. I mean, I don't really want to break down the incident, but because I'm sure it's been broken down. But it's not that Zimmer falls; it's that he bounces. So he
Yeah.
hits and
His
then
head
comes
just
off the ground and then hits
This
again.
is like he's like 75 at this point.
Pedro just
Like,
fucking sideswipes him.
yeah.
Oh, I haven't changed at all. I still laugh the same
Oh
way
boy.
when I think about it because I can envision almost the whole thing, just
Oh,
like
it's just
the two
it's
hands and then
literally
just
like a
the two hands and the
top
swing.
shot moment in my head of that. This is the
Oh,
wildest
Don.
of them all. This
Oh,
one,
Don.
which somehow I never heard of in all my Yankees history quirks that I know. 1973, which I believe, I'm not sure when exactly in 73 or maybe it was 74 that the Steinbrenners bought the Yankees. So I'm not sure if this was pre or post Steinbrenner buying the team. Yankees teammates Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich, two guys I've never heard of, announced they have traded families,
What?
including their wives, kids, and even the dogs.
Like
They
for good?
traded their families.
Like this isn't
They
like wife swap.
No, like for good. Peterson
Get
married
it?
his best friend's former wife, and they had 4 children. Kekich, his relationship with his best friend's ex-wife was short-lived, I guess. So it
So what
worked
that
out for
tells
one of
me,
them.
yeah, that tells me that
I don't know.
not Kakich, the other one was
Fritz
sleeping with
Peterson.
Kakich's wife. Yeah. And then he was like, all right, we got caught. Let's try to make the best of this. I get your wife, you get my wife.
Yeah, there was some swinger action going on. It was the disco era.
Yeah,
The
that's
Bronx
true.
is burning. I'm sure
That's
we
like,
could talk to Rob's dad, Pop, about that time
yeah,
in the
yeah.
Bronx.
But
Studio
like,
54
why do you have,
vibes, all that.
why do you have to trade the dogs though? I feel like they're
Yeah, I
just a
think that's kind of
casualty.
mean to the dogs. They have
So
their
my,
homes. They're more
so
attached to their homes than anyone else. I would kept the dogs.
yeah,
Also, it's
I would need more
still
details.
one of the, you know, also, why do you have to trade the kids? Because they're still going to like that's still their mom and
That's like,
dad.
yeah, you can't be like, no, this is your mom now. Like we've
Right.
this is your
Like you would
mom.
still, unless their relationship was poor, you would still want to see
Well, it depends
your
how old were the
parents.
kids too. How old were the kids during the trade?
I got to find out more about this.
Because I feel like if they were if they were younger, they have more trade value because they're like minor leaguers that you're not sure what they could become. If they're like
Right, yeah,
14,
versus like a
if they're like
15-year-old
yeah,
is
if they're
slacking
15,
off. And,
you have a pretty good idea like this kid sucks or this kid's a
right,
gem.
yeah.
He's hitting dingers at his little league game. So he's worth a
It's
lot
getting
more.
A's on his chemistry test. This
Yeah,
kid's
like if
gonna
he's
make
getting
it.
A's, you're gonna have to throw in like the dog and we're gonna even
But
this
also
trade out.
then you have to factor in like the college. They're smart.
Yeah. Because if the kid's really smart, his college tuition is gonna be higher than the kid
Right.
that's a bum. So do you want to just take on the bum, basically take on the next 6 years of his contract, and then you can release him at 21?
Right.
Yeah. And
So
also you got to take in the value of the house, whose house was worth more. I mean, it
I don't
seems
know
like
who
we're
these guys are
overvaluing the
two
discussions.
obscure guys.
Yeah, I feel like the discussion was really one guy wanted to bang the other guy's wife,
I feel like this was a
and
publicity stunt for both of
yeah,
them.
I think we're looking too deep. But I would have took account a lot of those things. I would have made sure I knew exactly all about this kid, like what kind of posters he had up in his room.
Yeah, well, there would need to
I'm gonna
be
trade
some
for a stud.
research done here.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
trade for a stud. Yeah.
What
What a hell
so
of an
that
episode.
is history. What a hell
That
of an
was
episode.
that was one of the better histories we've had.
That was bizarre. I don't
That
know.
was a bizarro history for
That
episode
all
18,
happened today in baseball history, March 5th.
today, March 5th, in baseball. That is episode 18. Thank you for
What
joining
a
us.
show.
Todd, another great episode.
Great episode. Next week, AL Central, we'll have a blast. I
AL
kind of like
Central
this
next week.
Friday slot too, but we'll keep it. We'll see.
What happened?
I kind of like this Friday slot, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I do too. I was gonna say that before. I feel like we're a little more loose, but
Yeah.
yeah, we could go for that. Seeing how things work out. Again, see you guys next week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your weeks, and have a great time.
Later.